Okay, Tuesday, September 30, 2025. Today was my Psyche day, another Psyche day. Still just continuing Man and His Symbols. Kind of over this fucking book, but it's fine. I'm gonna keep going. On the fourth essay. So symbolism in the visual arts. It kind of just kicks off talking about sacred symbols, particularly the stone and the animal. So I suppose stones have always been this precious thing to us. I mean, even as a child, I'm sure many people have the memory of picking up a rock or a stone or just holding it and taking it home and being like, this is mine. But I guess even further on, to the primitive man, they had quite the psychological significance. Okay. In many primitive stone sanctuaries, the deity is represented not by a single stone, but by a great many unhewn stones, arranged in distinct patterns, so like the Stonehenge, for example. But also even in Zen Buddhist rock gardens, the arrangement is not geometrical, but seems to have come about by pure chance. But supposedly, it's an expression of more refined spirituality. And even regarding early sculpture, the animation of the stone must be explained as the projection of a more or less distinct content of the unconscious into the stone. So the stone sort of becomes this. Earlier on in a earlier chapter, it was described as the stone typically being as the self, this unconscious self side of the self, which is pretty interesting. Okay. Okay. A good many primitive paintings have been used as targets. Okay, so there's also, a lot of, you look at animal pictures back in the Ice Age, so this is shifting to the animal. Oh, actually, before that, I want to do a quote by Max Ernst. Alberto and I are afflicted with sculpturitis. We work on granite boulders large and small from the moraine of the Forno Glacier, wonderful polished by time, frost, and weather. They are in themselves fantastically beautiful. No hand can do that, so why not leave the spade work to the elements and confine ourselves to scratching on them the runes of our own mystery? So, yeah. And then going on to animals, and so animal pictures can go dated back to the Ice Age, between 60,000 and 10,000 BC, which is, or BCE, whatever, which is freaking crazy. That's a long time ago, considering, that's just an unfathomable amount of time. Current human civilization. Well, okay, actually, okay, I don't freaking really know. But before the Ice Age, back to the Ice Age, it's a long time. Okay, so, and even now, these sort of caves are quite religious and revered, which goes to show that the caves and rocks with the animal paintings have always been instinctively felt to be what they originally were, religious places. So why is it so deep? So I guess some of these cave paintings are found very, very deep in these caverns, not just in the first room. Oh, but it's also, I believe, on the Hermeneutics Day, I'm reading a book called Forged in the Crucible by Mircea Eliade, and he talks about the caves being the Earth's bowels, giving birth to ores in a way, or I guess we, primitive man, would look at these ores and see them as birthed from the earth, and these caves were somewhat these bowels of the earth. So when one is participating in what is aesthetically an underworld, at least in terms to the living experience, or the day where, how do I describe this, when man is sort of on the ground and there's sun and there's light still, but then in these caves it's completely dark, giving somewhat of an underworld aesthetic, or unconscious aesthetic maybe. So why are they so deep? So this arduous approach may express the desire of the primitive men to safeguard from common sight all that was contained and went on in the caves, and to protect their mystery. So this preservation of mystery, this protection of the unconscious. Oh man, this is, could you even call it? Am I making a mistake by calling it the unconscious? I mean, is not the stone also somewhat that? But does not the stone come from the same place that, I mean, they're painting on stones. The cave itself is made of, or engulfed by stone. So it wouldn't be so much of a stretch to find oneself surrounded by stone, and therefore by the unconscious. Maybe. So a good many primitive paintings have been used as targets, which is so practiced by hunting tribes in Africa. The painted animal has the function of a double. So some of these paintings had marks on them, acting as a sort of symbolic slaughter. The hunters attempt to anticipate and ensure the death of the real animal. So this is a form of sympathetic magic, which is based on the reality of a double represented in a picture. And I thought there is a pretty interesting book, The Book of Imaginary Beings by Jorge Borges, who actually mentions the double. If I can just find it. Because is it this far back? Come on, man. Come on, man. Oh, gotcha. Okay. This is pretty quick. So suggested or inspired by mirrors. This is from the Book of Imaginary Beings, which is really cool. Suggested or inspired by mirrors, the surface of still water, and twins. The concept of the double is common to many lands. It seems likely that statements such as Pythagoras' "a friend is another myself" and Plato's "know thyself" were inspired by it. In Germany, the doppelganger. Okay, so I guess this kind of just goes into... So Plutarch wrote that the Greeks called the king's representative the other eye. I don't know if this... Maybe it was just the idea of the double, but... But the sympathetic magic is based on the reality of a double represented in the picture. So what happens to the picture will happen to the original. It's sort of a trope. Could I call it a trope? I don't know, because I haven't done enough research into Haitian voodoo practice, but one thinks of the obvious example of the voodoo doll as a sort of double. Uh, let's see. So, and then more so on the animal motif is a symbolic of man's primitive and instinctual nature during, okay, so yes, and circumcision rituals, the boy enters the possession of his animal soul in tribes, and while at the same time sacrificing his own animal being. Even the king and chief are animals too. In African tribes, generally lions or leopards. The emperor of Ethiopia is called the Lion of Judah, or the honorific of Dr. Hastings Banda, the Lion of Nyasaland. I'm not messing that up, but so he becomes the totem animal, and even becomes somewhat of a bestial figure, capable of inciting fear, often being the figurehead of initiation rites. So he's the one doing the circumcising. So, I mean, that's pretty freaking scary. You know, yeah, the lion is definitely going to be the one circumcising, not the I don't know, the lemur, or what's the thing in The Lion King? Oh man, this is gonna bother me. Meerkat, the meerkat. Yeah, it's not gonna be the meerkat doing the circumcising. But then also at some point, so people would don these masks, becoming semi-human beings in animal disguise. At some point, it transitioned from disguise to masks. So masks of animal and demon masks. And so the symbolic function of the mask is the same as that of the original animal disguise, obviously. I didn't need to add that. Individual human expression is submerged, but in its place, the wearer assumes the dignity and the beauty, and also the horrifying expression of an animal demon. So, in psychological terms, the mask transforms its wearer into an archetypal image. Some examples of animal symbolism. I mean, Zeus can take the shape of like an eagle. Mithra, the sacrifice of a bull. Freya, the cat in Germanic mythology. Wotan, the raven. Or is Wotan the same as Odin? Wotan? Oh, it's Wotan. Wotan. Okay, not Wotan. That's not how you say that. So, or even the evangelists have animal albums. So in Christian mythos, so Saint Luke is the ox, Saint Mark the lion, Saint John the eagle, and even Christ himself is depicted as the Lamb of God or the fish. The subhuman as well as the superhuman is felt to belong to the realm of the divine. I thought this was interesting that the relationship of these two aspects is symbolized in the Christmas picture of the birth of Christ in a stable among animals. Yeah, so just to sort of wrap this up. But in man, the animal being which lives in him as his instinctual psyche may become dangerous if it is not recognized and integrated into life. Following up with something pretty fascinating. The familiar dream in which the dreamer is pursued by an animal nearly always indicates that an instinct has been split off from the consciousness and ought to be, or is trying to be, readmitted and integrated into life. And that just right there gives meaning to, or explanation to, that kind of dream. So Primitive man must tame the animal in himself and make it his helpful companion, and civilized man must heal the animal in himself and make it his friend. So, I guess now the animal is alienated from its true nature in some way. So, yeah, that was the beginning of this essay. Already 15 minutes in. Dang, dude, I did not think I could talk about this for 15 minutes. But it's freaking late, man. It's like almost 10. It's like 7 till 12. Okay. Then James Hillman, Dream in the Underworld. Oh yeah, that was by, this essay is by Aniela Jaffé, or Jaffé. Jaffé. I'm sorry. And you know why I'm sorry. Because of the name. Alright, so this section is called Underworld and Psyche, and now it's sort of getting to the meat of dream. Okay, I'll just shut up and do the thing. So as late as Ovid, the dead are shades who wander bodiless, bloodless, and boneless. This is starting to give, okay, but the psyche remains, despite these shades being the way they are. So the underworld is a realm of only psyche, a purely psychical world. Underworld is a mythological style of describing a psychological cosmos. So this is giving a structure to the psychological cosmos, not so much to be, not to give like a cult or ritual location or some form of mythological, comparative mythology, but it's like a revision of the dreams, of dream in terms of it, of this psychological underworld. So I need to stop skipping around, it's confusing me. So the underworld is psyche. We are referring to a wholly psychic perspective where one's entire mode of being has been substantialized, killed of natural life, and yet is in every shape and sense and size the exact replica of natural life. The whole person is as in life, but devoid of life. To know the psyche at its basic depths, for true depth psychology, one must go to the underworld. This is not a comparative mythology. Okay, so the underworld is psyche, basically. That's what we're talking about, as an extension of sort of picking up where Freud left off. And reestablishing Freud's topology of the unconscious into a psychological topos, which is very, very fun because it really works the imagination. It's like what's so appealing to me about myth, I suppose. Because it does tap into that very youthful, imaginative part of my brain. And not just, it doesn't have to just be youthful. I guess, I don't know. I have to think about wording that. So then also even going to some underworld logic. Okay. It is in the light of psyche that we must read all underworld descriptions. So building upon that structure. Being in the underworld means psychic being psychological, where soul comes first. Underworld fantasies and anxieties are transposed descriptions of psychic existence. Underworld images are ontological statements about the soul, how it exists in and for life beyond itself and for itself beyond life. So we read all movements towards this realm of death, whether they be fantasies of decay, images of sickness in dreams, repetitive compulsions, or suicidal impulses, as movements toward a more psychological perspective. We are making a closer connection between Psyche and Thanatos. And then it even goes into talking about the sort of psychotherapists, not so much curse, but it's like to be a psychotherapist and work in depth, one in some way or another has to cooperate with Hades. But in doing so, the intervention of Hades turns the world upside down, and the point of view of life ceases. And we participate in doing so, we participate in Hades' rape, which is not just psychopathy, but a central initiatory mystery in the Eleusis myth. So, if you're not familiar with the myth, I guess I'm not gonna get this right completely. So, no, I shouldn't start like that. Basically, Hades kidnaps Persephone and drags her takes her to the underworld. So the rape moves the Persephone soul from the being of Demeter's daughter to the being of Hades' wife. So from the natural being of generation to the psychic being of marriage with what is alien, different, and is not given. So the Persephone experience that occurs to us still today, in sudden depressions, when we feel ourselves caught in hatefulness, cold, numbed, and drawn downward out of life by a force we cannot see. So we feel invaded from below, assaulted, and we think of death. Now, again, this is not a physical occurrence, but a psychical or psychological. I don't know, is that, can you use that? Because it's like Psyche logos, but psychical. I don't know. Okay. To be raped into the underworld, is not the only mode of experiencing it. So there's other modes of descent. I guess there's also another perspective. So there's evidently perspective. Hecate, who was the silent witness to this dragging underneath, that can witness the soul's struggles. In us is also a dark angel. Hecate, a consciousness that shines in the dark and that witnesses such events because it's already aware of them a priori. So, okay. And then finally, sort of elaborating on the fact that we're not reconstructing historically, but giving imaginal background. So to place dreams with Hypnos, Nyx, Hecate, Thanatos, and Chthon is not to give them a cult or ritual location in Greek culture. That should be emphasized. But to give them imaginal location in ours. We are constructing their imaginal background, their home, the world in which they find their likeness. The only imaginal location we have had until now has been Freud's topology of the unconscious, which again, as I said earlier, which we are reestablishing as a psychological topos. But going further on, that the knight and her brood are not the only ones capable of enacting these dreams, for we know that Hermes we know that it's Hermes that one turns for dreams, and indicating that they could be sent from him from any of the gods. So dreams themselves are neither gods nor even messages from the gods, except as transmitted through Hermes, this mercurial figure. Well, I guess they're sort of one and the same, but someone who can sort of switch between realms, whose peculiarly twisted ways are as unfathomable and deceptive as the Psyche's depths. Um, Because I understand that Mercury and Hermes tend to inhibit this trickster role, but to describe them as unfathomable and deceptive, I mean, I know he tends to be sort of an ambivalent figure. I don't know, but ambivalence is not the same as inherently, like, directly negative. But who's to say that deception is? I mean, deception infers a intentional, I don't know though, or intention to sort of do so. But, and then also to say that the psyche's depths are the same. So, unfathomable and deceptive. Can that exist in the same breath as ambivalence? I don't know, but maybe I'm mixing up the role players here, because Hermes is the Greek version of Mercury, and Mercury is the Roman. So, yep, alright. That was my Psyche day. I think I didn't really read very much today, so I'm probably gonna stay up a little longer, maybe like a couple more hours and do some more reading, but I just wanted to get this video out because the day was coming to an end. Yeah, oh, by the way, oh my gosh, yesterday, so I did a Logos day, and I forgot to say, I made a mistake, because I was describing something from the symposium, sort of Aristophanes how do I say? Okay, so in Aristophanes' speech, this is in the description, I mentioned the figures were split into two, but didn't explain why. So there's Aristophanes goes into sort of reimagine the human origin story. So, and according to the myth, Zeus and we were sort of these rounded creatures that had two faces but one mind, and I think one mind, but also like four like limbs. We were just like two people squished into one, and so because they were like they were very capable, and had ambitions to disrupt the gods. So Zeus divided them as punishment for their pride and to weaken their strength. And the loss of that is what fuels human longing for the reunion of that. So the symposium is a dialogue between a group of people about love. So yes, I wanted to correct that, because I didn't give a reason as to why I sort of skipped that, but okay. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. I'm saying, so I guess I'm posting this. I guess I have to. I started talking to you guys, so I gotta hurry you guys, but okay, goodbye.